Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Films and Stuff podcast. On today's very special episode, I am Ethan, joined as always by the most valuable Pete. Hey, Pete, what's up?
Not much, buddy. How are you? And also, happy Diwali to you and all our listeners.
Thank you. Happy Diwali to you and your family as well, my friend.
So,
And now we can dive into the release of the 33rd standalone MCU film called The Marvels, which is technically a sequel to Captain Marvel, right?
that's exactly right. Technically a sequel to Captain Marvel and semi-sequel to Ms. Marvel and semi-sequel to WandaVision.
Yeah, actually, I've been reading a lot of the comments have kind of classified this movie as like a separate standalone episode of Ms. Marvel series. So with that as context, what was your level of excitement going into this film? And what was your level of enthusiasm when you exited the cinema?
This is how excited I was. I was so excited, I put this movie on our top 10 summer blockbuster prediction, forgetting that it wasn't going to be a part of the summer blockbuster season.
Which is saying something because you actually only put 9 movies. Oh, that was the one that didn't count, right?
That was the one that didn't count. This was originally supposed to come out in,
Right.
I guess, May or June or whatever it was.
But you super freaked me out where I saw your list and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why wouldn't I put that on my top 10 list?
Yeah.
So we were both panicked.
Yeah. And I was looking forward to it because I had seen the first trailer. I loved the idea of this theoretical quantum entanglement between all 3 Marvel's characters.
Mm.
And then I was super excited because I was maybe one of the few people who actually really enjoyed Iman Vellani's performance. Even though I had lots of problems with the Ms. Marvel series, I thought she was a standout of that movie. And I really thought that there was going to be great potential for the interaction between her and the wider MCU, because in a lot of ways, she probably represents us, the viewers, because she's also like a super fangirl. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she could be a proxy for us, similar to the way that Tom Holland was in the first phase of the MCU super team.
Yes. I have some comments on that, but just as a level of enthusiasm, I quite liked Captain Marvel. I quite liked Brie Larson. I thought that she was a very good addition to the Avengers, and the story made sense to me. So I was excited for this as a sequel to that. I got a little bit less excited when it came closer to release time, when I started to understand that there was, Rambo is from, WandaVision, that, Ms. Marvel is, from, her own series. And I felt like, oh, they're really stuffing a lot into this movie. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a standalone. It seems like it's going to be a transition piece to something else. And that gave me a little bit of pause in terms of how great this movie would be.
Before we get into that, what was your cinema experience like?
Cinema experience was very positive. I saw it on a Saturday morning at my favorite luxury cinema. Not very crowded at all. It was opening weekend, but it was a Saturday morning. So the cinema experience, I think, is very positive.
Lots of kids?
No, I think there was only 2 other people there. Not a busy showing, which is a little bit surprising. Even though it's a Saturday morning, a little bit surprising because there's really not anything else out. And Dubai, as you know, has a very large Pakistani population. And Ms. Marvel, plays up her Pakistani and Muslim roots, right? So you'd think that in the region, that would be something of a more popular character. Hard to really have any takeaways from that experience, but it is what it is. I mean, a lot's been made of the long run times of movies recently. And this clocked in at a very short 1 hour, 45 minutes. That's kind of rom-com territory, right? That's not a very long movie, and particularly by Marvel or superhero standards.
That's usually around the time they have intermissions here.
Yeah, that's halftime.
Yeah. Controversial or maybe hot take, I actually think this movie was a little too short.
I mean, I'd like to hear then what you thought you wanted to see more of, because I can agree with you. Like, hey, I'm happy to sit around for another 15, 20 minutes. I wasn't exhausted, but I really can't point to any scene, character, or subplot that I was really dying to see more of.
Okay, perfect. So let's do it. Let's break it down.
Can I say one thing first?
Yeah.
Something that is difficult for me to reconcile is that I just want to read a few headlines from online reviews.
Yeah, please. This is going to be a big part of this. I agree.
Yes. I just took like 3 very, very well-known, online places. Forbes, right? We all know Forbes, very famous. The headline of Forbes is, "This is exactly the great, fun superhero movie that Marvel Studios needed." That's a very positive headline, right?
Absolutely.
New York Times says, "You've seen this movie 32 times before."
Yeah.
That's a very negative headline. Rolling Stone says, "Marvel hanging its female superheroes out to dry." I mean, even
Really?
even among these 3, right? I mean, and there's so many other websites that give movie reviews, but just among these 3 that are pretty well known and come up whenever you kind of Google, movie reviews, widely divergent. And you almost have to say some of this seems to be planted by Marvel. Some of this seems to have some political motivations. Really hard to get a sense online of whether or not this is a good movie. I mean, maybe we should we're going to have spoiler alerts, or we're going to have reviews here. My sense is that this is not a great movie, that it's definitely a wait for streaming. But if you're really a Marvel fan, there were some interesting elements in here that kind of advanced the overall universe story, but nothing that you absolutely needed to see to make sense of stuff.
Yeah. I will reiterate that. I too agree that this is a wait for streaming. I think this is barely a wait for streaming. Actually, there were moments where I was like, this is a skip. Let's also caveat a couple of things for this discussion we're about to have. 1, spoiler alert. 2, the important thing is that this movie, whether it was meant to be or not, has become very polarizing, or at least this franchise. And I think a lot of that has to do with the reception of Brie Larson in Captain Marvel, the first movie.
Why?
And I think that unintentionally, you have 2 major camps. Of course, there's a spectrum of kinds of people, but I think the 2 major camps are, 1, those people who are pro-feminism, woman power, girl power, hoorah, this is amazing, and any representation of women as superheroes is a positive thing. That's one side. And so if you have anything critical to say about the movie, they automatically flag you as a misogynist, as a sexist, as a racist, as any other kind of IST term, whatever. Okay, that's one camp. The second camp is the other side, which is, oh, well, this is all about pandering. Oh, this is all about wokeism. This is all about, you guys are too far to the left. And that if you like this movie, you're a wokist, you're a panderist, you're a Disney shill, you're a Kevin Feige shill. So those are the 2 major camps that have erupted. And generally speaking, I think the reviews are also reflective of that. I think a lot of the reviews have either been super pro this movie or super anti this movie, but for all the wrong reasons. The people who are super pro this movie are not pro this movie because the movie is good. They're pro because it maybe pushes an agenda forward. And the people who are against this movie are exactly the same. They're not against this movie because this movie is genuinely bad, but because they think that it's the only way to bring down the agenda of the other side.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that, and in fact, I don't like to think, I know that Ethan and I are looking at this purely as a movie. We're not looking at this as people who are sexist. We're not looking at this as people who are racist. We've openly gone on the record to say that we like certain characters, we've not liked certain characters, and we've gone into the reasons why, but we've never said, oh, I don't like Captain Marvel because she's a woman. I personally love Brie Larson. I just don't think I'm a huge fan of Captain Marvel because the character, at least in the first phase of the MCU, was too overpowered. She was able to do anything and everything. She had no kryptonite.
I think that's a very, very good point. Yeah.
So that was the problem I had with Captain Marvel in the first phase. So again, I love Brie Larson. I actually think she's great. And if you want an example of how good her personality is, check out Between Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis. Her episode on that was hilarious. Her outtakes are fantastic. Really good. Look at her on Community. She had a very big part in that series. Also very good. She's obviously an excellent actor. She's got a great personality. It just didn't come across in that first movie. At some point, you can't blame the actor only. There's the writing, there's the script, there's the direction. There's only so much a character can do. And in fact, I think if you look at Brie Larson in this movie, they made a concerted effort to walk back from the criticisms that she received as a character in the first movie. But they went too far because they gave her like 5 different kind of roles to play. And I mean, how much can you ask of an actor to do? Like, you can walk back a little bit, but now you're asking her to go reverse at 300 kilometers an hour. It's impossible.
Yeah. It's really true about this. I think the problem that you have with a female superhero character is that they're always so sensitive to any criticism. And it's right away reflected as criticism based on gender and not based on the character itself, right?
Yeah.
And I like Captain Marvel. I thought the first Captain Marvel was absolutely great. I agree with you. I think that the superpowers were a little bit overwhelming. Apart from that, she fit in very well with the Avengers. Like, I didn't see that was like an unnatural pairing. She had a very good role to play. It was a prominent role to play. She was very strong. She was accepted. The issue I had with this second movie is kind of what you said, which is she's balancing so many different roles. It's not clear what she's supposed to do. She's got now these emotional issues with Monica Rambeau, which I think is absolutely overblown. She's kind of got to be the hero on a pedestal for Imani Khan. And I think that was a little bit like overblown. She's at sometimes trying to be a teammate. She's sometimes trying to be a friend. She's sometimes trying to be a mentor. Like, I just felt like she's obviously got some emotional issues where she blames herself for destroying Hala. There's so many different like emotional pieces in this that I feel like she did not get to say anything funny. Even when she went to the planet and she was kind of like married to the prince, which I thought came out of nowhere, she wasn't allowed to be funny at all. She is a humorous character. She's got a good personality. None of that comes out. She's always so stiff and rigid. Doesn't seem to be like enjoying herself or having any levity or fun while filming this. How do you like the plot of this movie?
I'm not a fan of the plot of this movie.
The Kree somehow found the separate bangle. With this bangle, they're able to open like portals or wormholes. And with these portals or wormholes, they're able to suck out the natural resources that Hala needs to be a thriving planet again. I have to say, like, as a high-level plot, I kind of like the wormhole idea. I kind of like the idea that they're sucking the natural resources. I'm actually okay with that. Where did this one bangle buried in the ground come from?
Thank you. So, overall plot, that's absolutely bang on. Let's take one step back. We know that Hala is dying. Okay.
Yes.
And we're told through I'm not joking, a 10-second flashback that Hala is dying because ultimately at the end of the first movie, or between the first movie and this movie, Brie Larson goes back to Hala and destroys the AI that was controlling her in the first movie.
Right.
And that leads to a civil war. and somehow that leads to the destruction of the planet. And
The sun.
really not the destruction of the planet, the sun,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Which then causes a drought, which eliminates all the water. There's no energy, there's no air, none of that.
Right.
Okay, so here's my first problem. First of all, why does destroying a supercomputer create a civil war? That's step one.
Yep.
Two, why does destroying the supercomputer destroy the sun?
Yep.
That's step two. What is the rationale for this civil war? This is what I was talking about when I said you could increase the runtime. Increase the runtime 10 minutes. Give us a proper foundation as to why the plot of this movie kicks off. There's still lots of problems. There's still lots of places they could have cut out. Sure. But if you didn't want to cut out any of this movie right now at 1 hour, 45 minutes, and you told me that, hey, we're going to add an extra 15 minutes, and all of it is either monologue or exposition or flashback, even though I hate those three things.
Yeah.
All of those three things are going to happen so that we understand why this movie is happening the way it's happening. I would have said great. That would have added so much value to this movie, because we're literally, the first scene is Dar-Ben finding this quantum bangle. Why? Why does she need it? We don't know. We're told in a very flimsy way that it creates the portals. I don't know science. I'm not a quantum mechanics guy. But even other movies have very half-assedly used some kind of nonsensical science terms to explain how. This movie doesn't even do that. I don't understand a lot of the foundational aspects of this. That's the first issue I had. The second issue is stealing resources from other planets for themselves. Really? Has no one seen Spaceballs, the movie? That's precisely what happens in Spaceballs. They steal the atmosphere.
Exactly the same way. Everything gets sucked up into the big vacuum.
Again, as a conceit, even though we've seen it before, I, like you, don't think it's a bad thing because we have seen it before. You could have done that. But how does stealing water from one planet onto another solve the issue of the droughts or the dying sun?
They were going to steal the sun as well, right?
Well, I agree. But then the whole point
Seems
is
easier
that
to relocate planets.
This is what I meant, is that the plot felt really flimsy and it felt disjointed and so loosely made. This is the problem I had with the movie. It had nothing to do with the fact that the three main stars are women. It had nothing to do with the fact that one of them was white, one of them was black, one of them was South Asian. Nothing. Yeah. It had to do with the fact that the movie itself foundationally was so shaky. It didn't make sense to me.
One more point to make, though, is if you want to make the stakes even lower, we're dealing with totally different planets here. No one was stealing the Earth's water or the Earth's sun or the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
We're really dealing with something that's, from a Saber perspective or a Nick Fury perspective, kind of not our problem. We were just acting as kind of the galactic police. Brie Larson saying, hey, this is on me. I want to fix it. Like, I've got some emotional baggage. I feel like this is my fault. I'm going to make it right. But in terms of the actual stakes for like Earth, not very high.
Not very high. And I guess the way they sucked that in is because they said that every time she created the portal to suck all those resources out, it was destabilizing the whole network. Okay, I get that that's bad. But not until the end of the movie did I understand that destabilizing the whole network meant destroying or creating a hole in the fabric of space and time. I thought that just meant that the transportation network would have gone down and that the wormhole network was gone. But instead, now we learn that by creating all of these fissures, she's actually creating a quote-unquote incursion, to use a Doctor Strange 2 term, between multiverses. That would have been nice to know from the very beginning. How is it that in the final part of the third act, that's when we understand that? And if they had mentioned that, I didn't catch that. And I generally like to think that I catch small details like that.
Well, you want to make it even more complicated. Anyone who's an MCU fan has just finished Loki, where we got a really deep dive into
Whoa.
space and time.
Whoa.
How does this mesh with everything that we've just spent 6 episodes learning in Loki, which, by the way, is fantastic?
That really stuck the landing, I'll tell you that.
How does this mesh with that? Not just is there a multiverse, but now there's like multiple physics explanations for what's happening across space and time. I don't find that those two concepts are at all consistent. It would have been brilliant if they could have meshed them together and maybe even done kind of like a Loki cameo to kind of see how these things mesh. The old MCU would have put this together seamlessly, and you'd be like, oh my God, that's incredible how they've done it. Right? They could have absolutely had all these threads and everything could have come together in a very clear way. Here, they didn't do that at all. I feel more confused than ever. Those two don't at all seem to be part of the MCU, the way that they've explained this now. Can we go back to the beginning though? I don't want to like harp on it, but I'm just not clear. We see them basically doing kind of like the Armageddon space mining. What have I missed? Where were they? Why did they think that there were 2 bangles buried there? Why was there only one? It's all open questions, right? None of that I thought was clear to me at all. My second problem, I'm still not really clear on why our 3 superheroes have intertwined powers at some point, but then they stop being intertwined at another point.
At no point do they really explain anything about the quantum bands, how they work, which is, again, it could be magic and that's fine. But why the 3 of them are connected? They've talked loosely about the fact that one has got the power of light, one can see all forms of light, and the other can make hard light. Don't forget, Carol gets her powers in the first movie because she absorbs the energy of an infinity stone.
Yeah.
She doesn't get it because she gets zapped by a cosmic ray from the sun. She gets zapped by the power of an infinity stone. So what does that have to do with light in any way, shape, or form? Again, no idea. It's such a flimsy connection between all 3 of them.
Yeah. It's not clear why it started. It's not clear how it ended.
I can understand why she and Photon are connected. Sorry, that's the other thing. By the way, Captain Marvel is Captain Marvel.
Correct.
Kamala Khan is Ms. Marvel. And then Kamala makes a running gag throughout this movie about what we're going to give the code name for Monica.
Monica around. Yeah.
Right? And she's like, Professor something or the other. Yeah. We never get her real name. And if we did, I missed it.
I missed it. Yeah.
I thought that by the end of the movie, they would have called her Photon, but they left that thread dangling as well. Like, what the hell, totally guys? Agree. This is the most basic thing about superhero movies.
I didn't catch it either.
Anyway, the point is, I could understand if Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau are connected in terms of power because Captain Marvel gets her powers from the Tesseract. Wanda also gets her powers from the Tesseract way back in phase 2 when we first learn about Wanda and Pietro.
Yeah.
And then Monica gets her powers from walking through that radiation shield that Wanda created. So there is a theoretical link between Captain Marvel and Photon. In terms of the source of the power, I get that. There's no relation in terms of power sets between Kamala Khan and either. So why are they entangled? I don't know. But they could have certainly made that connection if they said a throwaway line. The quantum band was created. The bands were created harnessing the power of the space infinity stone. And then because she put it on, she absorbed that power too. Fine. Again, not a great explanation, but at least it makes sense in terms of linking all 3 of them together.
And then it just ended. There was no real reason for it to begin and no real reason for it to end. It seemed to just be a made up thing so that they could kind of like smash all 3 people together in the same. Like it would have been better if it would have been Photon and it would have been Captain Marvel saying, hey, we've got to find the other band. They track down Kamala Khan, they find the band, and then they bring her into the mix and say, look, we need you. Because you're the only person that can track down the other one. You're the only person who can find Dar-Ben. So while we're talking about the characters, Brie Larson is fit. Like she is legitimately, you can tell her abs are ripped, her arms are ripped. She is very, very fit, which makes sense. She was in the Air Force. Monica Rambeau seems to be in the military now. She also probably is very, very fit. Kamala Khan, first let me say, Iman Vellani, I think is very funny. Literally, I don't know if she's like 18 now or 20 now, has great comedic timing. She always comes across as very genuine. I really like her as a character, and I think that bringing her and her Muslim family into the MCU has been very, very refreshing. There's been a lot of Islamic references, if you catch it. What I don't like is that, all my respect to the actress, she is intended to be kind of a clumsy, awkward high school kid. By no means is she intended to be athletic or strong or tough. Not a criticism, it's just a fact, right? Why is she able to do all these like athletic moves where she's like sliding and jumping and fighting? I cannot. I'm all for having superheroes. I'm all for having diversity. I love her as a character. She's a great addition. She can be limited. Not every 16-year-old that comes into the MCU needs to have the same athletic prowess as all the other folks.
I think they could have wiped that problem away with a simple explanation, again, or a showcase of her training. We saw that a little bit in Ms. Marvel, where she's on the rooftop practicing her powers. That's fine. But then it would have been so much better if, like, in the middle of a fight sequence, she's like, oh my God, I am out of shape. I really need to, if I really want to do this, I need to be able to run a 4-minute mile, or I need to be able to stretch and touch my toes while bending over. Something. She's kind of reference. But then her first action sequence, which, by the way, I thought was awesome, but you're absolutely right. It makes very little sense that she's able to do all that kind of thing, because you can't have her both be the rookie who's never fought crime like this before and also be like this super live, super agile, super gymnast all of a sudden between a TV show, which we don't know how far away that was, that took place very recently compared to where she is now. Unless you tell us she spent the last year training, and that's fine. That's at least more believable or more plausible.
Yeah. It's my general issue with the MCU. Not every character has to be like equally strong. It doesn't show weakness if you say, look, she's got a great heart. She's the most genuine. She's the first person to hug Monica Rambeau. She's a super addition, and she's got a great power where she's got the bangle and she can make hard light. It's super, but she doesn't have to be the same running, jumping, kicking, punching, fighting person that Captain Marvel is. It doesn't fit her at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Let her sit on the sideline and let her make hard light and protect people. It's a great superpower. It's actually very cool. Let her make the steps. Let her make shields. Let her put people ensconced in bubbles. But she cannot be the same person who's throwing punches and kicking and fighting and wrestling and throwing people down. It doesn't fit her at all.
Let me talk about Iman Vellani. So in the same vein, I like that she was very lighthearted. She brought a sense of humor and joy to a franchise that maybe was a little darker than they intended it to be. And again, that could just be because that's how Brie Larson played it in the first movie. She was a bit too serious, a bit too straight-faced. But sometimes I thought it was a little bit too much, which I guess she acknowledged, so good for her. That's fine. Mm-hmm. She brought a lot of color, no pun intended, to an otherwise drab cast. I actually, while I loved her family in the TV series, I actually thought they were a little bit too much in this movie. I thought that maybe her mom was a bit over the top,
Yeah.
but fine.
Actually, can I say something? I feel like that's a wasted opportunity. Her family does bring a lot of potential levity to MCU. And I feel like the old MCU, like the Ragnarok like
Yeah,
type, would have used her family, and her
much,
mom is a
much
very
better.
famous actress. They would have made them less bumbling
Yeah,
and more clever timing wise. Because even this thing now with her mom, like no one really acts like that.
yeah,
They know
exactly.
her daughter's got a power. They know something important is happening. They're acting like bumbling fools, like, oh, space is so dangerous. We just read an article and you have to promise this. And the whole thing was nonsense. It was better, like that scene where the father and the son were kind of talking to someone about like their retirement accounts.
Yeah,
That's actually a what I consider like the core MCU of how they juxtapose, I never say that word right, something a little bit totally outside of the existing plot into the plot. And it's funny because like there's this really serious scene going on. They're like, well, how old are you? And he's like, well, I'm 247. And they're like, okay, well, there's always time. It's never too late to start planning retirement. Like those are very good
yeah.
writing scenes. I think those are better than the mom just being like, oh, I read space is so dangerous and you have to come back. And I don't allow you to go to space. And it was just a wasted, she's such a famous actress. She was really wasted with lines like that.
Yeah. Teyona Paris, what did you think of her?
Fine.
I thought she was fine. I liked her better as an FBI agent in WandaVision than I did in this movie. But
Yeah.
what I didn't understand is what was her positioning? Was she a superhero in the sense that she was able to fly and kick ass and do all these things that she was doing? Was she the genius? Was she the nerd? Was she the one who was analyzing all the different things? And she's like, I know how to save the day. She was a little bit of everything, which again, going back to exactly your point you were making about Imani Vellani, pick a lane and stay in it. There's no harm in being pigeonholed into one character, not flaw, but in terms of one character attribute. There's no harm in that because I use this term very lightly, but that's much more believable in a superhero.
I agree.
It's hard to be a little bit of everything. If you go back to the very first phase, it was always understood Captain America was a great soldier. He wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed.
Yeah.
On the flip side, Iron Man, sharpest tool in the shed, but maybe not the best soldier, strategy-wise, tactics-wise, personality-wise. He had a lot of flaws. They balanced each other out. Everyone was very balanced in the first phase. In this phase, there's a significant lack of balance. You can't be both kick ass and super smart and super funny and the emotional center.
I agree.
Pick a few things and stick to that. I think it makes things a lot more palatable. And especially when you have a team up movie.
I would say this would be kind of the skeptical hot take, which is there's so much pressure to make a female character or a minority character not seem subservient to the other characters that they have to kind of like infuse them with so much more to make it seem as though they're equals,
Yeah.
And we saw that even a little bit with like Kamala Khan. She's a kid. It's okay if she's not as strong as the other characters. She's a kid who wears a bracelet. That is her power, the bracelet, honestly. If she doesn't have the bracelet, she will not have anything. It's okay. She controls the bracelet. It's a power. It's not a fighting power to kick and punch and throw people. It's to create hard light. And she's very clever in how she creates a hard light. The same thing, I agree with you, with Photon has incredible powers related to light. Stick to those. Then I was going to say, and I'm sure that I forgot my point now, so maybe you'll pick me up while I think about it.
Well, yeah, so the flip side then, I mean, going one step further on that, it's Captain Marvel, who I think they've done, I don't want to say it's a good job, but I think they did a little bit of a better job because, as I said earlier, they've seriously nerfed her powers. In the first phase, she was single-handedly destroying ships by flying through them. She was absolutely decimating Thanos' forces, literally just by flying.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now she's getting beat up by a Kree soldier with a hammer.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me that that's all it took.
Yeah.
And I get that the band has some kind of power set attached to it. That's fine. But she seemed like she was struggling. And I don't want to say struggling in the sense that it seemed much more balanced in this movie than it did in the first phase. That's a good thing, but at the same time, it's a bit of a tough pill to swallow because of that. It doesn't make sense to me after what we've seen of her in the first phase to all of a sudden she's not struggling, but at the same time she's meeting people who are up to her level.
Look, I mean, to have any type of suspense in a superhero movie, the superhero has to have a vulnerability.
Yeah.
The whole suspense of Superman, he could die from kryptonite. It was legitimate suspense because there was a literal kryptonite, right?
Yeah.
If Captain Marvel has no weakness, why are we even coming to the movie? Because we know at the end, she is all powerful. She doesn't need Photon. She doesn't need Amani Khan. Keep saying Amali Khan. It's Aman Vellani who plays Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
She doesn't need a team. She can just do this by herself. So I agree, she needs some vulnerabilities. When we talk about emotional vulnerabilities,
yeah, exactly.
Two things. What do you think about Monica Rambeau having this deep conversation with Danvers? And what do you think about the ending where
they hug it out?
Well, first to hug it out, I felt like this was, I don't mean to be cold. Danvers was best friends with her mom, right?
Yeah.
They're not sisters. She's not Monica's mom. She was very good friends with her mom. I agree she was something of a surrogate aunt to Monica. She said she left, say, hey, I'll be back soon, or something like this, right? The kid, who's not just a kid anymore, who's a seasoned military agent, is now holding this grudge against Captain Marvel, knowing full well what the world has been through with the blip, then undoing the blip, with all the other things that are going on and what Captain Marvel has been doing. And Monica is really going to hold this against her after all those years?
I'm with you on that on paper, but my issue wasn't that. My issue was actually that it didn't go far enough, because that conversation wasn't that deep a conversation. It was like a minute long and it got resolved so quickly with a hug. I actually think Monica made some great points, which is because Brie Larson's thing in all of these movies, the rest of the universe needs me. And she said, yeah, but we needed you too. And that I thought was a great line, because at some point you have to accept that you can't keep running away from your problems. And that's fine. My issue was that it was such a short, not deep conversation. They hinted at a lot of these things that could have formed a lot of conflict between the main characters. But then they kind of immediately wipe it away as well. Okay, I guess we hugged it out and we're okay now. Losing your mom to cancer and not having your surrogate mother there, who is your mom's best friend, that's not a small thing to get over. I get it. She should know better, or, she is also an adult now. Maybe she'll be dull to that. But that's also not an easy thing to get over. So I'm fully on board with that. I get that. I just thought it was resolved too quickly.
Maybe that's the case, but then I would have preferred, then the opening scene I thought was really kind of silly. Like Nick Fury trying to kind of put them in communication by headset.
Yeah.
Then wipe out that scene. And Fury says, look, Danvers, I'm assigning someone else to work with you on this. This is who it's going to be. And she's like, Monica Rambeau? Like, my Monica Rambeau? And Fury's like, look, is this going to be a problem? And she's like, oh man, like, I kind of like abandoned her. And then it's like awkward. And then those guys have to work it out, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. And so that's the thing, is that in this movie, it seems like Carol Danvers' quote unquote big flaw is now that she's a loner, right? We see her being alone on her ship.
Yeah.
Oh, it feels really nice to have other people on the ship with me. The second part of that is like she feels guilty because she's kind of like the CIA, like wherever she intervenes, it ends up leading to disaster and destruction.
Yeah.
These things are so surface level and skin deep Like
Yeah.
the best Marvel movies are the ones which actually explore that. Best example of that was probably in Black Panther in the first movie. They actually explored those themes. And here, it's so surface level.
I mean, the ongoing battle between Tony Stark and Captain America in terms of how they see, the role of the Avengers.
Exactly.
That permeates throughout multiple movies
Yeah.
where they respect each other professionally, but they absolutely do not see eye to eye. We don't get any of that here.
Yeah. I just thought that was a bit meh. I thought that was very underbaked, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So speaking of underbaked, what did you think of the bad guy?
Zoe Ashton,
Yeah.
Dar-Ben.
Yeah.
That's Tom Hiddleston's wife, by the way.
That's right.
I mean, I thought Dar-Ben was solid. I don't know a lot from canon where Dar-Ben falls into this, but I thought that the Skrull-Kree conflict could have been given a little bit more attention in this, because I think that's the underlying issue, is that there is an ongoing war. And when you watch Secret Invasion, that war has kind of spilled over to Earth, right? The Skrull are really desperate for a permanent home. So I thought that could have been...
Again, and this is not a reflection on Zoe Ashton. This is not a reflection on her acting abilities or inabilities. I would go so far as to say this movie did nothing to sway me one way or another as to how good or bad she is.
Yep.
I thought she was quite possibly one of the least charismatic bad guys that we've ever seen on screen. I thought she was totally one note. This is, again, not on Zoe Ashton. This is 100% on Nia DaCosta. This is 110% on the writers. She had nothing to work with. She had hardly any lines. She was just so weak in terms of what her motivations are. I get the motivations, but there's no depth to the character. There's no emotional gravitas. There's no pathos. There's no nothing. I feel nothing for her. I barely understand the reason she's doing what she's doing. I just thought it was just a terrible, terrible bad guy.
I'm not quite as negative on Dar-Ben as you are, but I also have to say, I think it's not going to be a memorable villain in the MCU. I thought it was an absolutely fine effort, but I don't think it's memorable at all.
What about, you mentioned Secret Invasion. What about our good man, Samuel L. Jackson?
Samuel L. Jackson is, of course, a living legend, and his role in MCU is forever memorialized. He sucks all of the oxygen away from the other characters. By the way, that's not an easy thing to do, to have such gravitas on screen that you kill everyone around you, but he does. And I feel like we've seen enough Nick Fury that it's not really advancing things anymore. I'd really like to see him retire and try to find, his successor. And to be honest, I would have preferred Rambo, that rather than being Photon, another flying superhero, say, look, I want you to be my backup. You've got some superpowers. You're not Captain Marvel. You're not all these other people. You've got some powers, and those are very strong, kind of like intellectual type powers. You've got the military background. You've got all the clearances. I cannot keep doing this anymore. I want you to take over my role. I would have found that she would have been a very, very good fit in that role. And then when we're talking about the relationship between Danvers and Rambo, that would have been a little bit more awkward, where Rambo's like, hey, I'm a lot younger than you.
And I'm your boss now.
Now I'm your boss,
yeah.
Right? And Danvers is like, hey, are you doing this just to kind of get back at me? And she's like, hey, I'm giving you instructions. You're the one who's taking it personally. That would have been a very good conflict. And you'd be setting up the MCU with a successor to Fury. You put a black lady in that role, keep Rambo involved. I think that's a very, very clear path forward, rather than having another, okay, Photon, now she's trapped in another universe, kind of with her mom. We're going to have to figure that all out. Not loving it.
This is the issue I had. I love Nick Fury as a character. Yeah. I thought this was a horrible decision as to how they played him. Nick Fury is supposed to be a guy who's got a backup plan to a backup plan to a backup plan. Saber is crashing, and their best backup plan is to let the Flurkins, which, by the way, funny scene, but where did all the eggs come from? Why are there all of a sudden all these eggs? They didn't kind of build up to that.
The eggs are a very good question. That's not at all explained.
That's not addressed anywhere. And I think this is the problem that I'm having with the MCU right now. So remember, my thing used to be that MCU in phases 1 through 3, I always pictured at the MCU headquarters had like this giant whiteboard with interconnecting threads, like a murder board, where they were like, okay, in phase 1, these are the characters we're going to introduce, and this is how they're going to get interacted in all the different shows. What's going to be amazing is when we do Endgame, we can refer back to those threads all over again, and everyone is going to have a cumulative orgasm for those people who saw all 25 movies. We're going to reward every single one of them.
And they did.
And they did.
How they combined Thor with Guardians of the Galaxy, all that was just so good.
Okay, fine. That was wonderful.
Yes.
Are you telling me that Nia DaCosta and the writers now are so disconnected, and the MCU is so disconnected, they didn't just watch Secret Invasion less than 2 months ago on Disney? What are you talking about? The Nick Fury we just saw on Disney Plus's Secret Invasion was an old, tired secret agent who wasn't up to snuff. He had lost his edge so far as he had lost his second in command. So many small things were going on. He was just a tired, old, beat-up man. And then now in this movie, he's, relatively speaking, young, comic relief character. Like almost every other line out of him was a joke. He's not serious anymore. Tonally, a complete 180-degree shift.
I'm half with you that I totally agree. It's absolutely ignorance to not have made this in connection with both Loki and in connection with Secret Invasion. But my sense is that it's not that they didn't make Nick Fury connected to the Secret Invasion Nick Fury. It's that they just kind of used him as the sidebar who said one or two Nick Fury things, you know? Find a backup plan. Make a plan B. Like just shouting random instructions, but not really doing anything. You know, he was just there to cash the check.
That's not what Nick Fury is meant to be doing. He's not a token leader. He's not the guy who's just shouting out orders. He's supposed to be the guy who's not just giving instructions, but also coming up with the right ideas. He's also not a comic relief character. They had so many opportunities to have other people. By the way, they had the entire Khan family on board. Let them be the comic relief character. Let them be the ones who are making that comment. It's like, that's your backup plan? Getting us eaten alive by cats? Like, what is going on here? For me, this is a systemic issue in the MCU right now. It just seems like thematically and in terms of character beats, we are not seeing cooperation between actors, writers, and directors from series to series, which is something that we saw in the first 3 phases. Captain America and Iron Man and Thor were consistent in all of the movies they appeared in every way, shape, and form. Here, it's all the more galling because we just saw a Nick Fury-centric series less than 2 months ago on TV. How is it possible that you do this such a huge character shift? Because you can't go from being this old, dour, out-of-shape, retired man to this young acting, full of quips, full of humor man. And that's not who he's been. He's always been a little snarky, but he's also been the guy who can take out a gun and fire and fight and do stuff.
The MCU is, and I feel a little bit for them, but they are just not able to get rid of characters. And you saw this article, the same one that I did, which is they're thinking of bringing back Captain America and Iron Man. They're just not able to retire Nick Fury and some other people. They're introducing new characters. They need to start retiring some folks as well. to make way and give the new people a little bit of room to breathe. And they need to start writing episodes focused on plot and let the characters fill in the plot rather than writing episodes for the characters and then trying to fit the plot around that character.
They're playing the same song with different band members,
Yeah.
so much so that the last scene in the movie actually infuriated me. It actually left me very angry.
The mid-credit?
No, not the mid-credit. The actual last scene, movie scene, where Kamala Khan goes on a recruiting mission.
I have to say, I really like Kate Bishop.
I love Kate Bishop.
Not in terms of what she's done to the Buffalo Bills and destroyed their season, but I love what she has done for Kate Bishop and replacing Hawkeye. But I agree, Kamala Khan is not that person.
Why the hell is she going?
No reason.
And again, I like Kamala Khan. I love Iman Vellani. And I get that she's super enthusiastic. But what the actual F is going on?
Yeah.
Why would Nick Fury allow her to go recruit the new Young Avengers? And that's exactly what they're building up. It's the Teen Avengers or the Young Avengers, whatever you want to call it. Why is she there?
I mean, also, to put it in another way, if you were choosing one person to sneak into someone's house,
Yes.
Kamala Khan, once again, is an awkward high school teenager. She's not the type of person like Nick Fury to pick a lock, shimmy through a window. That's not her MO at all, right?
Have the window be haphazardly broken and have her sitting on the couch playing a Nintendo Switch or eating a bag of Doritos while waiting.
It would actually be better if Kate Bishop were there and then you see Amani Khan struggling with the window.
Or struggling to pick the lock, exactly.
Making all this racket, coming in, stepping on all this shit, ringing bells. And then she's like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and wait. And Kate's like, yeah, I've been here watching you for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
What do you want? That's a more comedic element. But to have her sit in the dark like Nick Fury, like, oh, I was just shimmying in the window and I let myself in. I'm so secretive and clandestine and waiting for you. That's not her.
This should have been the mid-credit sequence. The mid-credit sequence should have been the end credit sequence. I think that instead of Kamala Khan, it should have either been Nick Fury, because if you want this to kind of reference the beginning of the Avengers Initiative in the very first movie, that would have been a fun Easter egg. I think that if you really wanted to up the game, it shouldn't have been Kamala Khan or Nick Fury at all. I think it would have been fan-freaking-tastic if it was White Vision from WandaVision, if it was Cassie Lang from Ant-Man, or, and again, I'm not saying I like these characters, or if it was Ironheart from Black Panther 2. I think there's a ton of other people that would have made more sense to do this. My God, it would have been even better if it was Spider-Man.
Or have Nick Fury do it with Ms. Marvel and say, look, this is how we do it, right? Pick the lock, do this. And they're the ones making like all the noise. And he's like, okay, you got to be really quiet when you do this. And like he steps on like a squeaky toy, right? Or he knocks something over. You just got to be indetectable. And he's knocking all this stuff over, right? And she's like, are you sure you still got the same game? Like,
And then in the back, Kate Bishop just says that, yeah, try this combination to open it up, and she helps them pick her own lock.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something comedic like that would have been great as a mid-credit sequence.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, oh my God, they're teasing. First of all, that's how you make that scene better, first of all. Second of all, is this really how soon you want to build up the Young Avengers team? You've got Kate Bishop, you've mentioned Cassie Lang, you've got Kamala Khan. You're clearly building up the Young Avengers. Is this really how early you want to do this? This is the third, fourth movie, whatever, in the first phase of the next phase of the Marvel movies. None of the movies have really hit.
But sorry, this is, okay, if you've got these three, I don't mean to be sexist. This is not a compelling group.
Not at all. I love Haley Steinfeld. I think she was very good as Kate Bishop.
I totally agree.
But between the three of them, with Ironheart, with White Vision, young Loki, who they haven't talked about, but presumably he's going to be a part of this,
Yeah.
None of those people are compelling to me to watch the next Avengers movie or the Young Avengers.
I feel like this is a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, because they're throwing so much stuff into movies in an effort to make them very, very inclusive that they're watering down the characters. Ms. Marvel, I think, is a much more beloved character. If she can't kick and punch, she's a little bit physically vulnerable. And the other Young Avengers kind of have to protect her a little bit, knowing that she's not a fighter. But when she's able to do her hard light, she is integral and super valuable. Then I feel like you have to have a little bit of vulnerability to really be loved. She doesn't have it.
Now let's talk about the mid-credit sequence. What did you think? And for all of you who are still listening but haven't seen the movie, super spoiler alert. This is a big effing deal.
This is what I take away from it. We're going to have now a new universe, and X-Men are going to be in it.
Yeah, not just any X-Men.
Yeah.
The original Fox X-Men from the year
Yeah.
2000, 20-year-old X-Men. We're not talking the first class. We're not talking, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender X-Men. We're talking Kelsey Grammer Beast. We're talking James Marsden, although we didn't see them, but we just saw. So we see Beast and we see Binary. Interesting choice, but it makes sense. Although, again, I'm not a fan of Lashana Lynch. I just don't like her. But it's a nice throwback to have her back in.
That's her mom, right?
Let me give you a little bit of backstory. So Lashana Lynch plays Maria Rambeau in the original 616 universe.
The sacred timeline.
In this timeline, Maria Rambeau, played by Lashana Lynch, dies of cancer during the blip. In this new multiverse that Photon is now trapped in, Lashana Lynch doesn't have Monica Rambeau as a kid, and Lashana Lynch is the one who became Captain Marvel. In the comics, Captain Marvel becomes Binary, the character that we saw in the mid-credit sequence. She changes from Captain Marvel to Binary. So that is Captain Marvel, just a different version of her.
All right. Can I say something? If I can't get this, then I think we have a problem, though. So you're saying there's another universe, and Carol Danvers is not Captain Marvel. It's Lashana Lynch who's Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And she works with the X-Men because the X-Men exist in that universe.
Correct.
And who's Binary?
That's Captain Marvel. So Captain Marvel says, I'm not going to be known as Captain Marvel anymore. I'll become Binary. And she changes her super suit.
She changes her name.
She changes her name. This is super nerdy. In the comics, what happens is Captain Marvel gets captured by an alien race, and they do some experimentation on her. As a result of that experimentation, she changes as a character. So she decides that she's no longer going to be Captain Marvel. She's going to become Binary.
And she's still Carol Danvers.
I guess. I don't know. That's.
But in this case, Carol Danvers is not Brie Larson. Carol Danvers is Lashana Lynch.
Yes. I don't know how far they've gone in this alternate universe with it, but yes.
Okay. I guess I'm okay with that.
So it was a banger for me. I loved seeing Kelsey Grammer come back. I was super excited by that, but it says something that I was more excited by the mid-credit sequence than I was by the rest of the movie.
I feel disappointed by the movie just because there's something missing, and I want to blame MCU and I want to blame Nia DaCosta because I feel like they're trying to make their characters too powerful for like sending a social message. And I'm not on that anti-woke side. I'm on the side that I want a good movie and I want this to be about characters, and I want to like the characters, and I want them to have some vulnerability and not all be equals. Kamala Khan, again, is a wonderful character. She belongs in the MCU. She's a high school student, as we continuously hear from her. She is not going to be a good fighter. She will not. She will not be the physical specimen that Brie Larson, who is at least 10 years older in real life and was in the military, is in terms of fighting. So I want my characters to be a little bit more balanced. I want Nick Fury out. I've really had enough of Samuel L. Jackson. He had a time, he had a place. He's eating up scenes. He's not adding anything anymore. Replace him. Move on to Monica Rambeau as the head and have that be an awkward relationship between Monica Rambeau, who does have some supernatural powers. Let her be the boss of Carol Danvers and have that baggage be in that relationship for the next 5 movies. It doesn't all have to be solved in this film.
That's exactly right. I will push back a little bit. I think the one thing I did prefer about this movie is that they didn't make this movie exclusively about girl power and female empowerment. It wasn't a core conceit or theme, and I like that they didn't take that bait.
I think they pulled back a little bit. I agree.
They pulled back a lot on that. And it's because it's the tired trope that, in my opinion, doesn't have a place amongst true comic book fans. And I think true movie fans, because like you have rightly said, we're interested in seeing a good movie. The plot should be good. The story should be good. The character should make sense. It shouldn't matter that the character is a woman, is a man, is straight, is gay, trans, is whatever. It doesn't matter. And we've said this in the past. I didn't like Scarlett Johansson's depiction of Black Widow because she was a woman. I liked her because she was a competent hero, period. The fact that she was a woman wasn't her core conceit and wasn't her core personality trait. If they had done that here, that's when you would have had a serious case of pandering. And I think that that's a good thing that they didn't focus on that. I'm not saying that there isn't elements of that. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't. But at least certainly there were no scenes that stuck out so outlandishly to me that made me think that, oh, well, they're only doing this because all 4 main leads in this movie are male.
There is one additional cameo we haven't addressed, which came out of nowhere, and I'm still not sure what the purpose was. Tessa Thompson, Valkyrie.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was such a minor thing that I forgot about.
I mean,
that.
She came in on her rainbow, big hug. Hey, I called my friend. And she's like, hey, I'll take you guys all where? To New Asgard, which is on Earth. And then they just leave.
These are things that got resolved so quickly and so this is the problem, right? This is the movie to me just seems like a collection of scenes that are super disjointed.
Yeah.
I bet you there's a 3-hour cut of this movie that's a lot more coherent, but is probably a lot less tenable to have a 3-hour Marvels.
If you want to make this good and you want to interconnect the universe, have Tessa Thompson bring the Skrull to Earth. And then you've got Nick Fury being like, you did what?
Yeah.
Do you know what's going on here?
Exactly.
Right? And you could have one of the, I'm going to forget every character's name, but one of those guys like meet them there and tell Tessa Thompson, great, I'll take it from here. And you're like, oh no, you did not just give them reinforcements, right?
Right. Or have Daenerys Targaryen, have her show up as the Super Skrull. Or have Olivia Colman show up. I would love to have her run a saber.
Yeah.
She could be the next replacement for Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Right? Who's still got her faculties, who's super sharp.
Yeah.
And then it's also a question of she's part of the British intelligence squad. So can we trust her? Can we not? I think that would have been a far better thing to do.
I agree. For such a short movie, we spend almost as much time dissecting it and talking about it. And I think our passion for this and our rating for this are intertwined, which is you could make this movie anything. It could have been the greatest MCU movie ever. It could have been middle of the road. There was a blank slate, and the brain trust at MCU with Nia DaCosta came up with this clunker. Nothing that they should be ashamed of.
Guess what the budget of this movie was? It's going to blow your socks off. $275 million. Where did that money go?
I don't know.
Did they actually build a space station and film it in space? Like, I don't understand where this money is gone.
I also don't know. Even if you give Samuel L. Jackson $20 million, I don't know. I can't.
That is an absurd amount of money for this movie.
Because unlike Fast and Furious, there's no locations. Everything's CGI, right?
It's all green screen. Exactly.
Yes. So there's no locations, there's no travel, there's no logistics, there's no explosives, we need 100 safety coordinators with flame retardant suits and firefighters and this huge insurance policy and steel bars and none of that, right? Because there's a little bit of jumping and diving, but there's no stunts basically, no explosions, no locations, CGI, yes.
What are you telling me that CGI cost $200 million?
I understand CGI is expensive, but I would say CGI was created, if you think about Gladiator, right? Where they CGI'd the whole audience. They said, hey, CGI is a lot cheaper than hiring 100,000 extras for the day and putting them in the Roman Colosseum and filming them. CGI is cheaper. That's why they didn't. They didn't do it because it's better. They did it because it's less expensive. So if CGI is less expensive, why is this budget so berserk?
Insanity. Honestly, insanity.
This movie cannot possibly make $500 million.
And this movie has to make 800 to break even.
It cannot. There has to be a chief common sense officer that says, hold on. You're making a sequel to Captain Marvel that no one's really clamoring for, and you're going to spend $275 million? No. There's got to be someone who pumps the brakes on this.
I mean, you know who it's going to be? It's going to be the shareholders, because at some point this has to stop. This has been a disappointing year for Disney. They have made so many $200+ million movies, and they've got nothing to show for it.
I'm really shocked that there's no one with common sense who says we're not going to spend $275 for a movie that no one is looking forward to. When it was a lukewarm, and we're going to add 2 characters from recent TV shows, neither of which were like really, really enthusiastically embraced, someone's got to pump the brakes on that budget.
Yeah.
Because you cannot project that you're going to make, especially after this summer, beginning of November, right after the strike has kind of ended, this is absolutely not going to get it. It's not going to be the Christmas blockbuster. It's not going to be the Thanksgiving blockbuster. Even the timing of the release, you cannot make $800 million from this film. Pete, you want to give everyone the details if they want to give us a shout, agree, disagree, add in more context for the plot that we didn't really think was adequately explained?
Yeah. Tweet at us at F&S Podcast. DM us on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast. Email us aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com. Or as always, the best thing you can do is like this video, leave a comment below, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell so that you'll be the first to know when the next episode of the Films and Stuff Podcast drops.
Everyone, we really appreciate you joining for this deep dive into the Marvels, which is now Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, and the lady who we think is Photon, but hasn't been given a nickname as far as we're aware. All right. Thanks, everybody. Join us on the next week's episode of the Films and Stuff Podcast.
Thanks, Ethan.
Thank you, Pete. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.